All right, today I'm covering the difference between the common cold call scripts I see out there and cold call value statements, and why I believe cold call value statements are much more effective. The differences are very subtle, but when I was a new SDR using all the common cold call scripts I see taught, once I made this flip to using value statements, cold calling became a much easier and more effective process for myself, and my results improved dramatically. So let's get into it. All right, so first I'm gonna break down the common characteristics of the typical cold call script I see, starting with the infamous permission-based opener. The common cold call script and what's commonly taught out there is that you should start off by getting permission from the prospect, and that for some reason this is what builds rapport. So it sounds something like, hey, do you have 30 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling, and then you can decide whether you want to continue the conversation. Sometimes people get fancy with the pattern interrupts. Hey, do you have 27 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? Or it could be something like, hey, this is a cold call. Do you want to give me a chance here, or do you want to hang up on me now? Something like that. People for some reason believe it's this permission that builds rapport and trust with the prospect, when in reality that's not the case, and we're going to cover why in a second. The next most common characteristic is that you should listen more. You want to get the prospect doing most of the talking, and that you shouldn't be doing most of the talking. And you do this by asking open-ended questions and qualifying them. Oftentimes it starts off with you telling them what you do, and then without telling them any other details, you just start going into, so what system are you currently using, and how long have you been on that, and how's that going for you? Do you have any initiatives in the near future? And you haven't even told them what the purpose of the call is yet. So common characteristic, asking open-ended qualifying questions. Essentially what the typical cold call script is, running a mini discovery call. That's essentially how new SDRs are trained when they get prospects on the phone, is to run a mini discovery call where you ask open-ended questions, qualify, listen, build rapport, get permission, all this stuff. And ultimately what this leads to is the prospect being in the driver's seat rather than yourself. They are the ones in control leading the call rather than yourself. And this is why a lot of new SDRs struggle, because they don't sound confident and they give all the power over to the prospect, and the burden of proof is on you to convince the prospect that you're someone who's competent and worth listening to and worth potentially spending more time with. So that is why I don't like the common cold call script for new SDRs, because it gives all the power over to the prospect and puts them in the driver's seat when the burden of proof is on you and you haven't delivered any value yet. So now that we've covered the common characteristics of a typical cold call script, I want to show you how you can turn this into a value statement with just minor tweaks. On the surface, a cold call script and a value statement sound similar, but there's some key distinctions that make a value statement much more effective, especially for new SDRs. And the first is, rather than using a permission-based opener, you get what I call an assumptive formality. Basically, what should be going on in your head is, how do I get this person to give me a formality back so that I can take control from there and go right into why I'm calling? So here's an example of what that sounds like. I'll say, hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? Good, I'm just reaching out because... So I know you might already be thinking, really Connor, how are you? That's why you got me to click on this video. But the key is the downward inflection in how I said it. I had the downward inflecting tone that signals a formality. Tone is 90% of your communication on cold calls, because they quite literally can't see you. So the way you say how are you can have two entirely different interpretations. The downward inflection, hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? Is very different than, hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you today? That one that I just did signals that you're actually asking them to elaborate on how their day is going, and you're signaling that this call might go on for a while. The downward inflection signals, hey, I'm just giving you a formality here. Give me a quick formality back, and then I'll go right into why I'm calling. Because when you say, hey, Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? Really, all they can say back is some sort of formality. They could say, good, how are you? They can sound confused. I don't really care what they say, because my only goal is to get them to give me a short phrase or short response back, and then whatever they say, I'm going to neutralize it and say, good, I'm just reaching out because, and then I take control of the call from there. So I want to be doing the speaking out of the gate, because the burden of proof is on me to give off value. I haven't proven anything yet. To them, I'm just a cold caller. And to be quite honest, most people don't like cold calls. I get cold calls sometimes, and my immediate reaction is, this person probably can't help me, and it's on them to prove that they can. So the difference between a value statement is get that assumptive formality, and build trust by taking control. So you speak more, and there's 3 things you have to answer for them, ideally in the first 30 to 60 seconds. And that's who you are, why you're calling, what you want. I'll link to a video where I break down a full example of a value statement where I deliver this who, why, what in 30 seconds. But this is really how you build trust. Trust is different than rapport. The burden of proof is on me. I haven't given off any value yet. So rather than doing this back and forth and trying to build rapport, hey, how are you? How's your day going? Where are you based out of? How's the weather? A lot of people think people buy from people they like, so I got to make some small talk. When in reality, you don't need to build rapport. You need to build trust, because the burden of proof is on you. When you're just a cold caller who interrupted their day out of the blue, they're busy, they got some proposal they're trying to get done by noon so they can finish up their other items and get home on time. The burden of proof is on you to build trust, and this is how you do it. There's 3 questions going on in their head when they get a phone call from a number they don't have. Who is this person? Why are they calling me? And what do they want? So if you take control and answer these 3 questions confidently, concisely, you sound competent like you've been here and done this before, they're going to very quickly forget that this is a cold call, and they're going to start thinking, can this person help me? I do have that project, or we do have that problem. Maybe my boss will be impressed if I take a meeting with this person and they can actually help me and build a proposal that could potentially help our business. So rather than leaving it up to chance and doing this back and forth at the beginning, hey, do you have 30 seconds to talk, which can go a million different directions, I give them an assumptive formality. I try and reduce variance. Hey, Jim, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? Good. I'm just reaching out because, and then I'm going to tell them these 3 things and do most of the talking out of the gate. Deliver that value and tell them who I am, however you describe yourself, why you're calling, which is the value, how you can potentially help them, how you work with other prospects and customers in the past, and what you're proposing you can do for them. And then the what is time on their calendar. You're looking for 15, 20, 30, however many minutes of time on their calendar at a later date. So what you're ultimately selling on a value statement is time. You're not qualifying. It's not your job to run a mini discovery call on and off the cuff cold call, because you shouldn't expect that these prospects just have 10, 20 minutes to talk to you and you can fully qualify this opportunity. Sometimes all you can do is book that meeting. You have the right person on the phone, but they're busy, so you want to give yourself a better shot on net and book a meeting at a later date where you have agreed upon time set aside, and you can sit down, properly prepare, and you'll have a better chance of delivering a valuable message to them then than an off-the-cuff cold call when who knows what state they're in, they're not ready, they don't know what's going on. So ultimately, big difference between running a discovery call and qualifying with open-ended questions. You're here to tell them who you are, why you're calling, and what you want, which is time on their calendar. And very different. In this scenario, in the value statement scenario, you are leading. You don't want to give the prospects the steering wheel. You don't want them in the driver's seat, and they don't want to be in the driver's seat. 99% of the time that they get cold called, it's probably not useful for them. You want to lead, show that you're different, show that you know how this is done, and this is it. They sound very similar. Most cold call scripts will sound similar to value statements. It's just these are the characteristics that make cold calling super uncomfortable for a lot of new SDRs. No one likes, hey, do you have 30 seconds to talk? I tried that stuff. I always cringed in my head when I said it. It made me sound less confident. It became much easier when I just started giving formalities and thinking, how do I get this person to give me a formality? Once they do, I'm going to take control, tell them who I am, why I'm calling, what I want. That's a shot on net. You have gotten a quality shot on net by asking for time on their calendar. Oftentimes with cold calling scripts, you end up getting hung up on before you even said, hey, are you free to meet next week? Because you spent a whole bunch of time asking qualifying questions, and eventually even the nicest, most friendly prospects will get exhausted and they'll hang up on you. New SDRs will think, hey, this call's going great. They seem friendly. They've been talking to me 5 or 10 minutes. This is a great call. And then the prospect's abruptly like, hey, by the way, I gotta head into a meeting. You want to just shoot me an email with this information and I'll get back to you? Never hear from them again. That's typically how it goes. So hopefully this helps. Check out that video on full value statements because the differences are very subtle, but this is what's going to give you more control, give you more quality shots on net, and you're going to be in charge rather than the prospect. So hope this helped. If it did, hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.